A group of clerics in the City Deanery of the Diocese of London have announced their decision to establish an alternative deanery chapter. The move, in protest at the decision to allow church blessings for same-sex couples, has been described by the diocese as a unilateral move with no legal substance. To discuss this, I'm joined by Sam Margrave and Luke Appleton, Church of England General Synod members. Sam, I'll start with you if you don't mind. You've been a vocal opponent of the COV's recent change of direction. Was something like this bound to happen, do you think?
I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's helpful. I'm sure I and Luke will disagree on this, but you know, I've often said that the Church of England had more entryism than the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. And the answer to that is very simple. We need to take back the structures that we already have, not create new ones.
Take back control. Luke, what do you think? Do you believe in fighting from within? Do you think that's possible at this point?
Well, I think the action taken is a starting gun, really. Obviously, there's a wider move for differentiation, but this is actually about St Helens and its associated churches, which model the best possible way of bringing in young people and church growth, saying absolutely no to these proposals. The bishops have driven a bulldozer through church norms with the way that they are behaving, and so why shouldn't they do this?
But do you believe, Luke, that we can reverse the COV's progressive direction? Like, will moves like this actually have an impact?
I absolutely believe with enough resistance over enough time, we can do that. Yes, absolutely.
OK, Sam?
So I absolutely agree that we can change the decision. But I think our focus needs to be on July and winning all those people over who didn't vote or who voted against. Because I think there was a real problem in July. The message that Orthodox leaders sent across was really confusing. It was sort of saying that we can stay in the Church of England with a compromise and we just need a few tweaks. That isn't the case at all. What we need to do is take back control of the Church of England. I would argue that, you know, I'm compelled to resist too. And I would argue that if people in London want to do something, I would argue that they need to take the Bishop of London to court and, you know, take action for her heresy, which is something they can do if they'd like to do it. And I'm happy to support them if they want to reach out to me.
Sam, you always go hard or go home, don't you? I want to bring my dualists into this in a minute. But Luke, what about alternative episcopal oversight? Is that a possible option here? The idea that other bishops who are Orthodox could look after these groups?
So I think as a short-term measure, that is a necessity. How can Orthodox Bible-believing Christians look to bishops that want to compromise on essential doctrines? As a long-term solution, there needs to be a sea change within the church. And unfortunately, it's only by taking measures like this that that has any chance of happening.
OK, I'm going to bring my dualists in. I'll start with my nemesis. Aaron, I'm guessing that you believe the Church of England should go down the route of same-sex blessings and all this is a nonsense for no reason.
Well, it's their church. It's not my faith. You know, I'm a Catholic to start with, but I don't think it's my right or my business to really interfere in other people's matters of personal faith. I suppose it's a bit different with the Church of England in so much as it's the state faith. Yeah. And I think ultimately, yes, you're going to have issues, and perhaps you gentlemen disagree with that. You as well. You're going to have problems with regards to a state church not resembling the mores, the laws and the values of the state itself. And ultimately, that's what the Church of England is. That gentleman at the start said, oh, we had a problem with entryism, like Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. Yeah. For me, that's interesting. I mean, I don't quite know what the context is here, but when you say that, I think, don't you want people joining your church? Don't you want people being active in your communities? That's precisely what happened under Jeremy Corbyn with the Labour Party. And so I don't know the broader debate here. I know, like most people watching, that there are massive problems in the COE right now and a great deal of disagreement. But as an outsider looking in, this seems like an inevitable feature of being a state church. You will resemble the mores, laws and regulations of that state. I
mean, that's all well and good for you to sit there and say that as a Catholic with a magisterium and a solid doctrine that isn't changing. Emma, should the state church be representing the people or should it be representing the unchangeable faith as handed down to us by the apostles?
It's difficult because I know that you and I actually disagree on establishment. I think that you're more open to the idea of disestablishing the Church of England than I am. I do think that it puts the church in a kind of bind because on the one hand, you know, it's pulled in the direction of tradition and scripture, you know, and traditional Christian teachings. But on the other hand, it feels this need to, as other institutions of the state do, to be in some way representative of the people in order to legitimise itself. I think the Church of England should probably be understanding its own legitimacy differently, not in representative terms. Okay. But that does put the Church in a difficult spot, and I think it does make sense that there would be some within the Church of England who would feel the need to set up these sorts of parallel institutions within the Church of England to try and push back against these changes. But it's probably all part of the sort of tussling that may be inevitable given how many progressives there now are within the Church of England.
That's the point. So I want to go back to Sam. Sam, is it too late? If we've got all these liberal bishops, you talked about entryism, they've taken over the C of E as an institution, regardless of how sound and orthodox the clergy and the laity are, if the bishops are dragging the church into apostasy, is there even a way out of this? Should people not be looking further abroad to orthodox Anglican communions like GAFCON, or should they be leaving entirely and going to Rome?
I don't actually think it's a choice in the sense, I think that we need to look to Orthodox people outside of the Church of England and to either welcome them in or to seek pastoral care from them. But equally, I think the Church of England has a democratic structure. It also responds and listens to things. Bishops respond to newspaper articles and reputation management more than they do the Bible, I often sometimes think. And so we need people to be using their voices. And I was at a diocesan synod recently, and just nobody spoke about these issues. A lot of them have concerns, but they stay silent. So what we need is people to organise, to mobilise, and to engage. And yes, we need new people, but we need new people to accept the Bible and biblical truth. And that's what the church is founded on.
Well, I think you two have both been very brave. I've seen both of you give fantastic speeches in Synod. Luke, do you have a red line? Do you have a point where you'll say, look, this institution is too far gone for me to implement any change?
Yeah, for me, the red line is absolutely doctrinal change. And I think that has to be a red line for everybody. But I think for many people, it will be around what their local church, in the meantime, it will be around what their local church does and whether their local church actually ends up embracing these prayers, these illegitimate prayers, or whether they stand strong and orthodox. And for a lot of people, that will be the decision of whether they stay or go.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds like congregationalism to me. We have an episcopal structure. I don't know how we can have an apostate institution and rely on good individual churches. I don't know how that will work in the long term, but I pray for you guys and I hope it works out. That was Sam Margrave and Luke Appleton from the Church of England Synod.